So what you guys are going to be doing as peer mentors with these littles is you are going to offer support, guidance, advice. You are being an active listener with your littles, creating a friendship. Hopefully you are going to be building a connection with them. And then obviously a big part of today is just going to talk about, being dependable, showing up every week, what you can do to kind of help with your attendance, and just making sure that if this program is a good fit for you, we don't want to match anybody that quits like halfway through the year. So just, if you're kind of not sure if this program's a good fit for you, I would urge you to really think about it and make sure that you're going to fully commit for the whole year, just because it's so damaging for the youth that we work with to match them at the beginning of the year, and then something comes up and you decide, well, I don't know if I really want to do this. I might want to do something else, or I need to get a job, or this isn't really a good fit for me. It's just really damaging for our kids to match them and then have their big kind of leave them hanging. So, just make sure that if this is something you want to do, that, you do follow through and you show up, as many weeks as you can. Obviously, at Big Brothers Big Sisters, we don't get paid by the schools to do these programs. We do them free. And we rely on grant writing and fundraising to basically pay for our programs. One of the big things that we always have to look at is child safety. So we'll spend just a few minutes talking about child safety, just in terms of like the impact that you guys can have for us on child safety. The big thing I always say is just always know where your little's at, okay? And be within range so that you can, see them and also, hear them. So if you come to the program and you're sitting there hanging out and your little comes in the room and they say, hey, I need to go to the restroom, or I have to go to my locker to get something, just make sure that you escort them in the hallway at any time. I'm not saying you have to go in the bathroom with them, but at least walk them to the bathroom and then wait outside the door for them to be done and then walk back with them. We have to just make sure that, we always know where they're at. So a big thing is just going to be, paying attention from the time the program starts till it's over to make sure that you always know where your little's at. Any questions about that? It's pretty straightforward. In terms of the types of child safety, emotional safety, the big thing with emotional safety is, you've probably all been in situations where maybe you were in a place that you were kind of uncomfortable, whether it was like a rough neighborhood late at night, or like a dark alley where you couldn't really see what was going on and it was kind of scary, or maybe just like a party where you didn't really know anybody and you kind of felt awkward. That all ties into emotional safety, and the big thing we want to make sure with our littles is that they feel safe when they're hanging out with you at all times. So the way you can have an impact on that is just be open with them in terms of communication. Talk to them early and often, especially if you're coming into the program for your first year and you haven't been matched before and you don't really know your little that well. Really share a lot of stuff about yourself. Ask them a lot of questions so that way, you both kind of get to a point where you're more comfortable around each other. In terms of physical safety, we are mandatory reporters at Big Brothers Big Sisters. So if you ever see any marks or bruises on your little, or if they tell you some story about, mom or dad beating them or anything like that, you do have to make us aware of that right away. So, I'm not saying you have to jump up from your little and run over and say something, right in front of them, but just make sure that day that you say something to your site specialist about what you observed or what you heard them say. Even if it's something that's kind of 50-50 and you're not really sure, we'd rather be safe than sorry. So go ahead and let us know anyway, and then we'll follow up and try to find out the details of exactly what happened and talk to somebody about it, just because we don't want anything to happen that we maybe overlook and it, maybe was something that was severe. Better safe than sorry. Any questions about those two types of safety? Pretty straightforward, right? Food security, that's just a thing where we bring snacks to our programs. We usually only have enough snacks to where everybody gets one snack, but if you do notice that your little maybe didn't eat something that day, or they say something about being really hungry, feel free to let us know and we'll get them an extra snack. We don't want any kids that are programmed that are, starving or anything like that. I know that most of the schools do a pretty good job with the free and reduced lunch for some of the kids, but just make sure that you communicate with them, like, did you have breakfast today? Did you have lunch? What did you eat today? Ask questions like that just to kind of get an idea, like, are they eating enough? Are they, you don't want to have somebody that, isn't getting enough to eat. And then transportation, that's just, the big thing for that is, just like you guys had to fill out a whole bunch of paperwork that you were probably like, oh my gosh, there's so many forms for this program. Ugh. We make the parents do the same stuff just because we have to have so many things that, checked that we have to make sure, go into like safety and just information that we need for our records. And one of the things is the parents have to let us know, okay, who's going to be picking up this little from the program every day? Is it going to be just mom? Is it mom and dad? Is it mom, dad, maybe grandma some days, grandpa, aunt, uncle? If there's like 5 people on the list, that's fine. We want them to put just anybody that's allowed to pick up that little. So just, make sure at your program, depending on what the dismissal is like, for mine, it's kind of different. Some programs I have the parents that come into the room and will like pick up the kids actually like from the cafeteria. I have some programs where the kids walk out with the principal and the bigs kind of walk the littles to the cars with the parents. So, just kind of talk to your site specialist about, who's picking up that little from the program. And just make sure that that is the person that the little's going home with, unless they have like a written note or like permission from somebody, like, hey, I can't pick up my son today, but he has permission to go home with a family friend or someone else in the program that like lives close. Just make sure that they're not just randomly like going home with someone that's not on that list, because you just never know. Unfortunately, there might be a situation where like dad's not allowed to have contact with the little, but he shows up randomly to like pick up the little, and the little just wants to see dad, so they just go to him. Whereas mom shows up then and she's like, where's my kid at? And then we kind of look like we're in a tough spot there. So just kind of double check with your site person in terms of who your little's going home with. Any questions about safety before we move on? So this is like an open discussion type stuff. So if there's anything that you guys have any questions about or any comments that you want to make, any feedback you can give me about anything, feel free to stop me or, just say like, hey, back up. I don't really know what you're talking about there. I'll go back over it. But so feel free to stop me or else, I just talk randomly. So if I go too fast or anything like that too, just let me know. You guys know what confidentiality is? Anybody not know what that means at all? It's okay. It's a big word. Basically, that just means that anything that your little tells you about themselves, like personally, you don't want to talk about to like other bigs or your family and stuff like that. Just kind of keep it to yourself. You can talk about like the good stuff. If they accomplish a goal, if they get a good grade on a test, if they're like having a really good day, all that stuff is great. But if they tell you something like personal that you just want to make sure that you're not like telling a bunch of other bigs about it or spreading rumors or just number one, it's something that we have a zero policy for at our with all of our programs. And number two, obviously if they're telling you that kind of stuff, you're building some type of rapport with them and they're starting to get more comfortable telling you stuff, and you don't want to do anything to like damage that relationship that you're building with them. So just make sure that you're not talking about them about anything bad to other people. Make sense? Pretty straightforward. In terms of appropriate context, so that social media thing that you guys filled out, the positives just aren't as good as what negative things can happen in terms of that. So we just say like, hey, no contact social media wise or like phone number wise. So if you ever have a parent that asks you like, hey, can I get your phone number? I want you to like come babysit, or hey, would you want to like maybe hang out and go get ice cream with your little like outside of the program? That's great and that's nice, but we don't allow it. So just make sure that when you hang out with your little, it's only during the program time. Don't let any parents like force you or pressure you into, babysitting or doing something like during the weekend or something like that. In a couple of years when you're older and you're not in the program anymore, if you want to hang out with your little again, that's fine. But while the program's going on, just make sure that the only time you guys are like hanging out is during the program. Now, if you like run into them at the grocery store and you see them, I'm not saying you have to like run away and hide from them. You can say hi and all that kind of stuff, but don't plan any outings together. And then with the tie-in for social media, we tell the parents like, hey, we don't want you to have the phone numbers of the bigs. We don't want you to be like friends with them on Facebook, follow them on Instagram, Snapchat, any of that stuff. So if they ever like talk to you about that, or you see like a friend request from some of them, you know, just let us know, or, you know, politely tell them like, hey, you know, it's nothing against you. It's just, there's a rule that I can't make us the bad guys in that situation. And, you know, we'll definitely talk to the parents and tell them like, hey, you know, it's not anything with them. It's just, it's our rule. So any questions about that? Pretty straightforward, right? Mentors acting as role. So I've been reading a lot. Is there anybody here that's like a really good reader that wants to read this for me so I can take a break and not talk so much? Anybody that can read this wants to read it?
Don't raise your hands at once.
Kyle, what do you think?
I'm here.
Oh, thanks. Yeah.
True role models are those who possess the qualities that we would like to have and those who have affected us in a way that makes us want to be better people. To advocate for ourselves and our goals and take leadership on the issues that we believe in, we often don't recognize our true role models until we have noticed our own personal growth and progress.
Perfect. So role models. So whether you guys want to be role models or not, if you decide to go through with this program and become a big, you are going to be a role model. Okay? That means that these kids are going to look up to you. They're going to say the things that you say. They're going to act the way you guys act. So always kind of be conscious about what you're saying, what you're doing, how you're acting during the program, just because these kids will mimic that kind of stuff. And even if you think they're not really paying attention, like, they're always listening. So if you're having like maybe more of a high school type conversation with another big about something that like happened over the weekend, just be aware that, you know, once the littles come in the room, maybe cut off that conversation and have it at a later date. That way they don't accidentally overhear you saying something that might not be age appropriate for them, and then, you know, you kind of feel silly, and the littles like telling everybody like, oh, my big said this, you should hear what they're saying, that kind of stuff. So just be careful about that kind of stuff. Like I said, just know situations. If you're like the sarcastic type that likes to be like real playful and like talk about that kind of stuff, you know, if you're gonna do that with your little, make sure it's like a one-on-one setting where only the little kind of hear you say stuff like that, where you're kind of teasing them. Don't really like call them out in a big group, because even though you might just be like joking around or being sarcastic with your little, sometimes if it's like an 8 or 9-year-old, they don't really understand that, and they might get really embarrassed, and it might just cause like a situation where, you know, they get really upset about it, and then you kind of feel bad. So if you are the sarcastic type, or you get to the point where your relationship's really good and you want to joke around with your little, that's fine. Like, I'm all about you guys like having fun, but just make sure it's like a one-on-one setting where only they're kind of like hearing you say that kind of stuff, so that way they're not embarrassed around other people. Does that make sense? Okay. Just in terms of role models then, so if you guys think about it, you know, I always just ask you guys, like, who are some of the role models that you guys had when you were younger, or even now? Like, does anybody come to mind? Does anybody want to share like someone that's a role model, either like right now in their life or when they were a kid, like someone they looked up to? Parents? Anybody else? Grandparents? Anybody else have somebody?
I had a teacher, Mr. Galeta. My last name was Crawford, and he would always call me Crawfish.
Yeah, my parents, but also, you know, I had a football coach that really took me under his wing. But so these people in your life that you viewed as role models, what are some characteristics that like come to mind, or some things that you think about when you think of a good role model in your life? Like, just shout them out.
Honesty. Successful.
Successful, honesty,
Team
player.
Made me feel comfortable with who I was.
Yes. Kindness. You know, strong moral character. All that good stuff, right?
Good listener.
Yeah, good listener. So all these things, think about these things, okay? You know, take on the responsibility that you are going to, and I'm sure that if you decided in your life, like, hey, I'm going to volunteer my time to help a kid, you're probably already a pretty good role model, right? But, you know, just kind of make sure that you follow through on that end, and that, you know, that you always act appropriately, and, you know, have fun, but at the same time, like, you know when to be serious and when to not goof around in front of the kids. So Big Brothers Big Sisters, we are one of many agencies that do mentoring programs now. They've really multiplied through the years. So there might be 50 different types of mentoring programs in Ohio now, at least, right? But the one thing that kind of makes us different is we really focus on that one-to-one, where we take one big, one little, and we match them together, and let them develop that one-to-one relationship. So just always in your mind kind of have the idea that, I'm not saying you have to ignore everyone else that's in the program, but just make sure that you don't get in the habit of okay, my best friend's also a big at this program, and usually the first half hour of the program, me and my best friend, we just gossip and talk about stuff going on at school while our two littles play games together. I'm not saying you can't ever talk to any other bigs, but just really make sure that your focus for the program is you and your little. Because they're going to need things from you. They're going to want attention from you. So just make sure that you're giving them, that one-to-one time that they need. Don't fall into the trap of, because it's easy. It's easy talking to another high school student, right? You would much rather, if you had the choice, if you walked into a room and there was a high school student sitting there and a third grader, who would be easier to talk to? The high school student, right? Same age, a lot of things in common, right? The third grader, you're like, I don't know what this kid's deal is, But, embrace that difficulty. Take on that challenge. It's easy just to sit there and gossip with your high school friend the whole time, but, think, I'm going to be a really good big to this person. I'm going to focus, all my attention on my little and make sure that, when they're talking to me, I'm not playing on my phone, or I'm not constantly getting text messages from my friends, replying to them. If you are a big-time phone person, and I get it, it's just the time, I use my phone a lot, I get it, but, if you tend to be the type of person that you have a friend that always texts you right after school, all the time, maybe have a conversation with your friend and say, hey, on Thursdays I have my program, so if you could just wait and not text me until 5 o'clock, that would really help me out. Just have those conversations with your friends. Let them know, that hey, or if somebody's been texting back and forth with you after school and you're sitting there and the program's about to start, just send a text to them and be like, hey, my little's about to come in. I'll text you after the program's over. Cut it off. If you do have an emergency and you need to use the phone, that's fine. I'm not saying you can't ever use your phone during the program. I'm just saying don't be that big that while your little's talking to you, you're like, okay, yeah, okay, or scrolling your Facebook or your Instagram, that kind of stuff. Use this as an opportunity for you to kind of, you're helping a little, but also they're going to help you to get away from some of those, problems or things that are going on in your lives. Sometimes it's nice to kind of unplug from technology. Do you guys ever do that? Have those days where you just put your phone away for a couple hours and you're just oh, I'm free. You can just relax and nobody's bothering you. You're not scrolling Instagram, seeing how pretty everybody looks, all that stuff. So do that during this program, Use that as your time to kind of unwind from that stuff. Focus on that time with your little. And I think you guys will end up getting a lot more out of it than you think you will. Because you're helping these littles, but at the end of the year, you'll probably see, I'm sure you guys that have been in the program can tell, your littles are helping you too, right? You're getting just as much out of it a lot of times than they are. So, it is just important to have that individual attention. Okay, so most of you guys are new, so you're not matched. So let's say we match you really early in the program, by the second week, right? So you come in, you just got matched at the last program. So you come in the next week and you sit down and, the program's about to start, your little comes in, sits down next to you. What do you talk about? What do you ask them? What kind of questions are you going to ask, that first meeting when you're hanging out? They sit down and they're like, hi. And you're like, hi. And then you stare at each other for a minute. You're like, what do you say? What do you ask them? Yeah. How was your days? Fine. But usually that'll just be good. Or was school good? Yeah. try to stay away from like questions that can be answered with yes or no, or also like one word. Like maybe say something like, "What'd you do today?" Or if your program's on like a Monday, "What'd you do over the weekend?" You know, what time do you go to bed at night? What time do you wake up? What'd you have for breakfast today? What'd you have for lunch? You know, all that kind of stuff. Try to ask more. You guys know what open-ended questions are? Questions that they can't just say yes or no to. Try to, if you find yourself like, I'm not saying, you know, everyone slips up. Like, there might be a day where you ask them something and they're just like, yes. And you're like, oh crap, I asked them a yes or no question. That's fine. But follow up with that. Try to ask details about stuff. Ask them what they're really into, what gets them excited. Look for those little triggers that, you know, things they're into outside of school. Don't focus on, you know, just school stuff. Ask them what they like to do, you know, after the program. What kind of shows they watch, what books they read, maybe who like their heroes are, stuff like that. What they want to be when they grow up. Find out stuff that like they get excited about, that they really want to talk about, because you'll need that stuff. Because there'll be days where they have a really crappy day and they come in and they just want to like put their head down and they don't want to talk to you about anything. But if you know a couple things that they like are really into, that might be stuff that you can kind of ask them about that maybe gets them a little bit excited and maybe opens them up or changes the day around for them. Does that make sense? So yeah, just get in the habit of asking those, you know, open-ended questions. Find out stuff. Or if they're having a rough day, they don't want to talk, that's fine. You talk. You tell them all about you. Okay, until they're sick of hearing it. You know, just tell them everything you know about yourself. And we'll do a good job. You know, usually I do like little mock interview things early in the year with my programs where I'll have bigs and littles, and it won't be just like the one match. I'll have people like interviewing like everybody and asking questions and finding out, you know, what's your favorite animal, favorite, you know, TV show, all that stuff. So, you know, find out that kind of stuff though early on. Those are easy questions that you can ask. You know, don't sit there in silence. You know, share with each other. Give them your undivided attention. Physical contact. Don't pick up the kids. Obviously, if you're doing like a middle school program, which I think this is all elementary kids, right?
Got one Claggett.
Oh, Claggett. So, you know, obviously you're not going to want to pick up a middle school kid. But some of the elementary programs are different because, you know, you might have like a kindergartner or a first grader that's like, oh, pick me up, you know, I'm going to climb on you. And that's, you know, I don't like freak out about that, but just try to teach them proper boundaries for the most part in terms of like, hey, you know, we're friends. Like, I'm not your carrier. You know, I'm not here to just carry you around and that kind of stuff. You know, try to stay away from like big time hugs. Maybe just do like little side hugs or fist bumps for the guys. You know, high fives are cool. All that good stuff. But just try to work with them on like proper boundary type stuff. And then accountability. Just being there for your little, being on time. This is like the biggest thing for me. You know, my best program, I've been with Big Brothers Big Sisters for like almost 5 years. I've been doing school programs. This will be my third school year doing school programs. But the thing that I've really noticed is my best school programs are always the programs where my bigs are committed. That means they show up every week. They're on time. They're focused on their little. They hold each other accountable. You know, and that's just, you know, have some pride in the fact that you're going to show up to the program and work with your little. That way your friend doesn't have to work with two littles that day. Because we've, you know, those of you who've been in the program, you've probably had days where you had to work with two littles, right? And that's hard. You think working with one little's hard. You know, there might be a day where you have to work with two. Because, you know, some bigs don't show up. You know, don't be the person that causes that stuff. You know, how can you help that? I'm not saying that you need to, you know, climb out of bed if you have a 104-degree temperature where you miss school that day and come to the program. I'm talking about the days where you went to school, it was just a really crappy day, you had a big math test at the end of the day, you have a huge headache, and you're like, I just want to go home and lay down and eat ice cream. I don't want to go to the program. Like, I have no interest in working with a little. You know, I get that. We all have bad days, but, you know, be that big that kind of sucks it up. Even if you're not on your A game that day for the program, that's fine, but be there for that little. Because even though you're not missing because of that little, or you don't mean to be like disrespectful to the little, they take it personally. Like, the worst part of my entire week is when I go to my programs and I have a big that I know isn't coming, and the little comes in the room and they look around for their big, and I know their big's not there. So then the little, comes walking over to me and says, "Hey, is my big here today?" And I have to look at them and say, "No, your big can't come today." They are crushed. They are crushed. And, I'm not saying that you can't ever miss a program, but do whatever you can to come to as many programs as you can, for as long as you can. So how can you help that? The thing I would do is, look at your calendars. If you guys have like doctor's appointments, dentist appointments, orthodontist appointments, make sure that the days and times of those appointments don't coincide with the program. Switch it. Switch the time around. Switch the day. Usually if you have a dentist appointment in like 3 months, they'll move the day as long as you don't call them like the day before. Don't wait until a week before your appointment and then say, "Oh, I can't come next week. I have a dentist appointment." Really? You could have switched it to another day. So do that kind of stuff. Talk to your parents about it. Or whoever your guardian is. Talk to it. Say, "Hey, hold me accountable. Make me go to this program." It's important to these kids that you're there every week. So if you're the kind of person that likes to start doing things and then you're kind of I kind of like to quit stuff, I don't really follow through, maybe this program isn't a great fit for you. Because we do need bigs that are going to, show up every week. Now, obviously, there might be a day where you're sick or your family's on vacation or something like that. Just make sure that if that does happen that you call, email, text, whoever your site person is, and let them know ahead of time. And don't wait until 10 minutes before the program starts. Do it a couple days before, do it the day of, do it before lunchtime that day, if you know for sure, or if you're running late. I always say too, if you can come to part of the program, do that. It's so much better if you have to leave early, or if you show up a little bit late, but you're still seeing that little, it's just a huge, huge impact that you're going to make if you're there consistently with them. You'll see. My best matches, I'm telling you, are always the ones, the kids really see that, and they show up more. There's nothing sadder than when a little quits the program because their big doesn't show up consistently. Even though they're having fun and they love being in the program, after 2 or 3 times of their big not showing up in a row, they're like, "To heck with this program. I don't need this. I'm tired of showing up every week and my big's not here." So, don't be that big that causes a little to quit the program just because, you don't feel like coming sometimes. We only meet, 22 times a year? It's 30 hours that you're meeting with your little. There's such an impact that you can have during those 30 hours. Don't miss those opportunities. Take advantage of it. And, there's nothing that excites me more. I have bigs that use me as references when they find summer jobs. So last year I was at some schools in Wadsworth, and a couple of my bigs put me down as a reference on their resumes. But I had someone from the library that called me over the summer, and she was like, "Oh, tell me about so-and-so. She put you down as a reference." And, I was so excited because that big, didn't miss any programs that year. So I was like, oh my gosh, she had a perfect attendance, great big, worked really well with her little, was never, distracted, or, they had a great relationship. Because places that hire you to work, they don't really care if you know how to do the job. Anybody can teach you how to do a job properly. What they want to hire you for is they want people that are going to show up, be on time, and work well with people, right? So if you are consistently at our program, you come up on time every week, you work well with your little, I'm going to brag about you to somebody if they ask. Right? I'm going to say this person will be a great employee. They're always on time, they show up every week, and they work well with others. That's all places want to hear. Even if you're not the brightest crayon in the box, they can teach you how to do the job, right? But you can't teach some people how to show up on time. You can't teach people how to work well with others, right? There's some people that just don't work well with people, and good luck to them, because we kind of live in a world now where, unless you're one of the people that just like sits at a desk all day by yourself, you're going to need to learn how to work with people and talk to people and get along with people. So, just kind of embrace that. Use this as a stepping stone for later on in life for yourselves. Have some pride that, hey, I came to every program this year. My little, got to see me every single time. And like I said, if you do have to miss for some reason, let us know ahead of time. And if you're in like a whole bunch of clubs or you have like a sport, talk to your coaches, talk to your advisors, and let them know, like right now, or before the program even starts, say, hey, I'm doing this Big Brothers Big Sisters thing, and it's every Tuesday during this time. Like, even if we have a meeting going on or an event or something, like, is there any way I could come late or leave early, because I really don't want to miss this program? Most people are going to cut you some slack on that, especially, it's not like you're ditching them to, like, go goof around. I mean, you're helping kids that are in the school district, so I would hope that those advisors would be lenient with you about it. And if they're not, let us know. We're happy to email a person at the school and just say, like, hey, can we work something out here? Like, it's really important for this relationship to work if so-and-so can come every week. So we'll go to bat for you for that stuff. Does that make sense? Any questions about that? I'm not trying to scare you guys. I'm just trying to be real with you about it. Because, I mean, that's what this program boils down to. It's about bigs that are, every program is only as good as the bigs. Every program, usually about halfway through the year, I can kind of just be like, all right, bigs, you run the show. You decide what we're doing this week for certain things. And really good bigs will do that. They'll take the reins, and there'll be leaders that step up. There'll be people that, do different things. So, have some pride in that. So along with accountability, we have activity logs that we have. So basically what happens, when we match you with somebody, we give you a folder with your name on it and your little's name. And in that folder, there's like an activity log. Basically, it's like 5 questions. It just talks about what you guys do that day, what you guys talk about, any like success stories with your little in terms of like goals they might have accomplished, or like exciting like things they told you about themselves, any concerns that you have, anything that you need to let us know about. Right? So when we have you guys fill out these forms on a weekly basis, every time you meet, basically there's like 5 minutes that we'll say, hey, Biggs, fill out these activity logs for us. Make sure you're not just putting it in there like, oh, we did stuff. We talked about stuff. Everything was cool. It was fun. We get along good. That doesn't really help us out. Yeah?
Sorry, I just thought really quick.
That's fine. Yeah. Just make sure when you're filling those forms out that you are as detailed as you can be. Just about things you talked about, things you did. Because what we do is we have to do match support for these matches. Because I don't know exactly what you're talking about. I'm not saying I'm just going to sit there and be like, well, you guys hang out. I'm not going to even... I like to walk around the room during my programs. Most of us will do that. We'll kind of walk around and, visit with everybody, make sure everybody's doing okay. If you need anything from us, that's fine. But we don't know the details of what you guys are talking about. So this is your opportunity to let us know. What are you guys talking about? What are they saying? Are there any things that we need to address? Is there anything we can help you with? Right? All that stuff. So take these activity logs seriously and be as detailed as you can with them. Acceptable and unacceptable reasons to miss. We kind of hit on that with the accountability, but like I said, there's a big difference between you're really sick at home from school all day and you just kind of have a headache, or you just maybe have a little upset stomach. Even if it's a day where you have to leave early because you don't feel great, at least come for a little bit of the program. Try not to just miss just to miss. And then being the best big that you can be while you're there. One of the big things we'll do this year is match goals. how to set proper goals and what they should entail. Basically, the way I do it is I let my littles pick a goal for themselves, and then I let the big pick a goal, and then I pick a goal. So every little's going to have 3 goals. One that they come up with, one that you come up with, and one that I come up with. Now, these can be academic, they can be social, they can be anything, any type of goal. The one thing I ask of you guys is when you're thinking of a goal and when your little's thinking of a goal for themselves, try to gear those goals towards something that we can measure and judge, because what we get graded on as an agency is they really look at goal setting for us. Like, what are these kids wanting to accomplish? What are the steps they're taking to accomplish that? And are they accomplishing that? And if it's the goal is something like, well, my little just wants to be nicer to people. I mean, that's great, but it's kind of hard to measure that unless you get more specific in terms of like maybe have a better relationship with like mom, or make 3 friends at school. Because that's something that you can say like, okay, how many friends have you made this week? Have you made any new friends this week? That's something that we can actually like count and measure. Whereas just being nice, like, how do you measure that? How do you show like, well, this person was really mean, but now they're kind of nice? Like how? How do we know they're nice? Like, how many more friends do they have? Stuff like that. Stuff that we can actually like look at in terms of like data and say, okay, they did accomplish a goal. I can see that through, whether it's like a certain number of people, maybe it's improving a grade. Like maybe ask them like, hey, what, if they say I want to improve my math grade, that's a good goal, but we got to find out what was their math grade at the end of last year and write that down. Maybe it was a C. Maybe they want to go from a C to a B. Okay, now we have something that we can actually measure. Now we have something that we can look at and say, okay, did they accomplish the goal? Did they not? Getting better at math, I don't know if they're any better at math if I don't know what their grade was last year. So just kind of think about that kind of stuff when we talk about goal setting. And then also, help them with steps that they need to take. And we're a good resource if you're not sure, if you're like, I don't know how they're going to accomplish that goal. That's fine. We'll help you find some steps. Come talk to us about it. We'll come up with a plan together. That's what we're here for. You guys are helping the littles, right? And our job is to kind of help you help the littles, right? And also help you, because there'll be days where you're struggling with stuff. I always tell my bigs all the time, come to me, talk to me about any problems you have. Even if it's like a personal thing, like, I might not have the answer, but I know someone that you can talk to get the answer. Don't be afraid to, ask me stuff if something's bothering you personally and you don't really have people to talk to about it. Because even if I don't have the answer, I'll find a way to get you an answer. I'll help you as best I can. Use us as a resource for that type of stuff for yourselves. And have a plan and review this plan on a weekly basis. Yeah, so go over these goals. And set goals for yourselves. You're never too young, you're never too old to have goals. I have goals every day. My grandpa has goals. He's like 92, right? Everybody should have goals. So, set some goals for yourselves this bigs and work on those. I'm not saying you have to like write them down, but, talk to us about it. That'll help you guys later in life too. Share a few things about yourself, what your interests are, the first few weeks of meeting. Yeah, so just like we talked about at the beginning, really be a chatterbox early on in the match. Tell them what all your interests are, what you like, okay? Let them know all that stuff. Maybe things that they don't even know about. If they're really into something that you know nothing about, that's cool. Have them explain it to you. They get really excited talking to bigs about stuff that they know a lot about, but you don't. But they get to explain that to you. And even if you do kind of know about it, maybe just kind of play stupid about it. Be like, I don't know what that is. Tell me, And then they get really excited, like, oh, you don't know what that is? And then they get to tell you. That's always kind of cool when they get to do that. Expose one another to something new. That's kind of what we just talked about. Match support. So, like I said before, when you use those activity logs, we use that for match support. So just be as detailed as possible. If we ever try to contact you about something, or if we need you to do a survey for us, just be responsible about it. Call us back, text us back, email us, get those surveys done for us. None of them are ridiculously long. They usually take less than 5 minutes to do. If we ever have stuff like that, if we ever need to get a hold of you about something, just don't blow us off or dodge us. If you miss 2 programs in a row, hopefully you let us know about it ahead of time. And if you didn't, own it. Don't just disappear. Don't ghost us. There's nothing worse than a big that just stops showing up and then doesn't return phone calls or anything. They're just don't be that person. So, own it. That's basically it with that. Match closure. This is important because you guys, has anyone not been interviewed yet? You guys have all been interviewed, right? Anybody not been interviewed? Okay. So we asked you a lot of questions, right, during the interview. And a lot of it had to do with what kind of little you'd work best with. And if I look back at 90% of the interviews I did, everyone's always like, oh, I'll work with anybody. I don't have any problem with any kid that has ADD or any issues or learning disability or parents that are troublemakers and in jail. Just give me anybody. And I appreciate that. That's awesome. That you're willing to take on anything. But don't bite off more than you can chew. If you think you might be the type of person that struggles working with someone, that has some of these issues, be honest with us about it. We're never going to say, well, you don't want a really bad kid. Well, we don't really want you in the program then. No. We'll do our best to maybe match you with someone that has less issues, that might be a little bit easier to work with, if you're more comfortable with that. We want this to be a good experience for you. We don't want to force matches, right? Because forced matches usually end up closing, right? And that just creates more work for us. We don't want to do that work. So we want to make good, healthy matches. So what you can do is give us a ton of feedback. If we come up to you and say, what do you think about being matched with so-and-so? Don't just say, yeah, fine, great. Let us know. Be real with us about it. Say, well, I don't know. I think I'd be a much better fit with this person. And maybe we never even thought about that. Oh, that makes sense. There's a lot of pressure on us to make good matches, and we want to, but we need your help with that. So, be real with us about stuff. Don't let us match you with somebody that you think might not work out, because we don't want to close matches as much as we can help it. There's always going to be matches that close. Maybe somebody moves away. Maybe something just happens. We have to close it. But we hope it's always at the end of the year, whether it's somebody graduated or moves to another school. We don't want to close matches during the year. And the way you can help us not close matches is help us make good matches. So maybe you were the person that just got interviewed a couple of weeks ago, and you were like, I'll take anybody. And you go home today and you think about it, and you're like, maybe I don't want to be matched with a boy. I don't know if I can handle that. Let us know. It's never too late. I'm never gonna get mad at you or whoever your site person is. We're never gonna get mad at you for being honest with us and saying I know I said I'd work with anybody, but I really want to work with this type of person, or someone that's more energetic or less. I want someone that's quiet. I know I said I'd take anybody, but I really don't want to chase kids the whole time, especially if it's a younger age, right? So think about that stuff and let us know. Give us more feedback. That'll help us out. Accidents and incidents, when something happens, incident reports, who do you talk to? The big thing with this, I've only had to write one incident report, and it was 2 years ago. I don't think I had any last year, and it was just one of my littles slipped and fell in the bathroom because there was a big wet spot that he didn't see, and we thought he might have a concussion because he was dizzy, so we called mom and had her pick him up. But, just always know where your little's at, what they're doing. That way, if something does happen, we're able to, do these incident reports, heaven forbid, if, something did go wrong. If an act of violence occurs, something's damaged, somebody gets hurt or sick, or somebody breaks the rules. Developmental assets is a big thing. So basically, we found that there's a study by some really smart people that found that there's a list of like 40 assets. And if you reach a certain age and you master these assets, statistics show that you have a greater success at life, like down the road. That you're going to be better prepared to have success in life down the road, right? So we saw this list of assets and we were like, maybe we can incorporate some of these assets into our school programs so that way we can help kids that are maybe struggling with these types of things, develop them, even if they don't master them. Maybe just introduce these things to these kids and touch base with these things, and maybe it'll click. Maybe it'll click with some of these kids down the road, and even if you can't help them today, like who knows, there might be a light bulb that you turn on in that kid's head where down the road they end up making a better decision or something like that. So what we decided to do was every week we're going to maybe pick one of these things, and we're going to try to focus on it that week. And, our program is not going to be spent the whole time doing that one thing, but I just wanted to show you guys some examples of some things that you might work on with a little this year that kind of deal with these assets that we want these kids to achieve. And that's goal setting, being a good friend, positive communication, safety, proper boundaries, motivation, peer pressure, good decision making, self-esteem, and then conflict resolution. So you don't have to memorize these things or anything. I'm just giving you guys a little heads up of there might be some activities that we do that have to do with those types of things. In terms of the program structure, every program's different. Even for me, when I have programs that on Monday and Wednesday that are basically the same age littles, my Monday program always looks different than my Wednesday because every kid that we have is going to be in the program for a different reason. You might have a little that they have a ton of friends, but they get F's in math. Or they are straight A's in math, but they aren't good readers. They're 2 grades below level in reading comprehension, right? Or you might have a student that's, straight A student, but they don't have any friends. Or they're just new to school that year. They're new to the school and they don't really know anybody. Or they go home at night and mom is a single mom and works 4 to midnight and they don't really have anybody to talk to at night. They're just home by themselves the whole time. So, everybody's kind of in a different situation for why they're doing our program. So just make sure that, that our littles, that you kind of try to identify with us, what this little needs and some things that maybe you can help out with in terms of things that they might need or what their strengths are, what their weaknesses are, and kind of help us come up with activities, because we used to always do big time group stuff, right? But now we're going to try this year to get more away and get more into, individualized activities. So, maybe what this match needs to do today is different than what this match needs to do because this little has a whole other set of issues than this little does. So maybe there's stuff that we want them to work on, and this match doesn't really need to work on that. So they might be doing something different that day, right? But the way the program's set up is, usually we break down the 90 minutes into 3 30-minute sessions where we'll do 30 minutes of homework time. If they don't have homework to do, then usually we have some type of board games they can play, or maybe they'll do flashcards. Maybe you'll read to each other back and forth, where it's big reads a page, little reads a page, big reads a page, little reads a page to each other. We might have you guys do some type of, card game, or just maybe just a regular board game that day. If there's a holiday party or something going on, it might look totally different because we might not have much time for academic stuff. So we might, because they're probably not going to have homework if it's the week before, Christmas break or something like that, especially depending on the age of kids that you work with. We try to do 20 to 30 minutes of outdoor time or in the gym if the weather's bad, or we kind of let the kids run around, burn off some energy. We do a lot of tag games, like Sharks and Minnows. We do a lot of Pac-Man tag, Gladiator tag. At least with my programs, we do kickball, play basketball. Outside we usually take some balls outside, let them run around the playground. burn off some energy that way. And then we usually have like 20 to 30 minutes to kind of do that activity that I talked about, whether it's, you know, something that we all do together, or there might be some weeks where we break it up, where it's like you do something like this, you do something like this, maybe this group does something different, something like that. So that's kind of how the program breaks down. Any questions about anything like that? Makes sense. Oh yeah, we'll have guest speakers. I usually have someone that comes in and does a lesson on like bullying with the kids, and that's good for, you know, bigs and littles, because, you know, I had some bigs that shared some stories about